Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the studio tonight, and thank you, everybody, for dropping in. Let me just move your hat back a little bit, and I really could do with some barn doors on this. I'm just trying to get you, there we go, just out of the sunlight, the light from the camera. So we're going to have a go at doing some carving tonight. Hopefully we can make the carving work. And it doesn't hurt my thumb. We shall see. If it does, we'll see how much we can do before we stop, but we shall see. So, start with the glove. Safety glove. And then we shall carry on. Where we left off, which was shaping this pussycat, I think that back end still wants to go down a little bit more. And possibly in a little bit around the back end here, so let's do a bit of that. Yeah, okay, I can still feel it on my thumb. We'll see how it goes. See if I can avoid putting too much pressure on. We'll see if we can work this way a little bit more tonight, although that means I'm going to get covered in shavings, but never mind. Let me zoom the camera out a little bit. That'll be a bit easier as well. Just because I was doing the jewellery the other day, so yesterday, so that helps with a really close camera. This doesn't. America, good evening. Welcome to tonight's studio, and how are you today? Well, that's good. Nice to hear it. I'm not doing too bad today. Been a bit of a busy day. Doing stuff. Important stuff, but been unfortunately not necessarily too much fun stuff. But never mind. Gluten-free gamer now hosting. If you're around gluten, thank you very much for doing that. That's kind of you. If it's just you bot, then also thank you, gluten-free gamer bot, for hosting me. That's great. Thanks. You've had a few too many. Oh yeah, that sorbet. Kinda know what you mean. Not because of skateboarding, but because of carving. I was doing jewellery last night because I've been carving this for about 3 days, 4 days, something like that. And when I'm using this knife and I'm pushing it like this, it makes this thumb sore. So not sore like you are, but it's still. Yeah. But so I'm just trying to roughly rough out, or even not so roughly rough out, rough out the shape of a cat. Yeah, it's always that thumb. Well, I suppose it's the only thumb I use to push with, so I don't use that one. Um, yeah. Occasionally get a similar thing when I'm using the chisels with grasping it with my right hand, but not very often. It's always that thumb. I've done it. I haven't used the knives very much. Um, I think I've used them for this and used them. Well, I'm using them for this, and I started this several months ago. And I've got another 3D sculpture that I was working on, and in both cases that, that I'm learning. I don't know. Maybe I ought to have some sort of I don't know, a leather or something, just a cap on this thumb just to take the pressure. Yeah, that's kind of same idea. I'm not using as much pressure with the hand tools in America, but yeah, I try very specifically not to not, not to use that much pressure. But carving basswood, it's you don't need a lot of pressure, so. And I'm a little bit conservative. I don't go for great big heavy chunks of wood. I tend to go for um, you know, light shavings and light cuts. Mainly because I'm not that confident in carving, but it works for me. Okay, now that shoulder blade wants to come down, and so does the back. That's a silly thing. I keep forgetting that the wood grain is parallel just here, right on the back. There we go. Thank you. Still a bit vertical on this back end. Let's make everybody cringe a little. I have a bit of fun carving that way. Tutti Frutti, hello, welcome back to the studio this evening. Nice to see you again. I've had sort of my wife and a couple of people see me hand carving a little, things a bit like that, and they're always going as though I'm about to slice my thumb off. It's kind of fun to do it just to, it was kind of fun to do it just to get them all nervous like that. Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, I agree. I'd love to get a bandsaw actually. Um, Although I'd probably end up not with a bandsaw as such, but unless I get a miniature bandsaw, I'd probably end up something with more like a deep throat. I was going to say like what the vibrating saws called, like a coping saw, but a mechanical coping saw. I forget what they call the things. Rather than a bandsaw, but because I'm not likely to be doing big things. Sort of. Well, actually, I don't know. Yeah, maybe a miniature bandsaw would be nice one of these days. Something with about I don't know, a foot throat, a 1 foot throat or something like that, and not I don't need anything full size. Yeah, that's right. The hand goes. That scroll saw. That's the one. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Scroll saw. And one of the tricks you can do with a scroll saw is you can put you can get um, you can get blades for a scroll saw. You can get them for they fit hacksaws as well, which is useful. It's actually called an ABBA file. I haven't seen them for a while, but there again I haven't looked. And it is actually a coarse file, effectively. But what it means is you can cut in any direction without turning the wood, which is quite neat. Ubix, yes. Well, we're going to have a go. I can feel it a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. If it gets too much, I'll stop and do something else, or stop altogether. But we'll see how it goes with the carving. We'll see how nervous I can make people. I'm looking at that and thinking, that's not symmetrical. And then the thought occurred to me, it's a cat. Why does it have to be symmetrical? It doesn't. People aren't symmetrical. Why should cats be symmetrical? Why should they have laid symmetrically? Oh, actually, just whilst I came across something, it just occurs to me. I came across something today while I was doing a bit of tidying up and clearing out. I came across something I carved a fair while ago now. It's a good few years ago. But carving this is something that's always fascinated me. I used to do it with matchsticks. Make wood chains with out of a matchstick. And this was done out of a piece of sort of 2x2 timber pine, but I just came across this. Yes, it's a wooden chain. It was made completely from a single solid piece of wood at about 2/3 the length of the chain. So completely carved. Did I carve it with? I don't actually know what I carved it with. It was probably half of it was cut with a standard saw, and then I was probably using something like a scalpel or a craft blade, I think, when I did this. I really can't remember. These days I'd probably do it using one of the rotary tools, since it would be a heck of a lot quicker, but I just thought I'd show you guys as I came across that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 links. Quite clever the way they're made, and I know it leaves people who have seen this particular thing have always wonder, where did you join it? Did you glue it back together? And it's not single piece. How do you get them interlocking? And it's just the way in which you make them. So it's effectively made like that. Well, with this level, but it's a solid piece of wood, and you just cut around the links and then separate the two, and that's your link. And the whole thing was done that way. So I just thought I'd, just thought I'd show you. I'll stick that down there. And now, oh, I don't want that knife. I'm using this knife. Take the shoulders down. Naughty and naughty. I was the wood was splitting off there, not being carved off, which is something that shouldn't happen. If the wood splits off, you're doing it wrong. And if you can't actually get the wood to come off at all, then you're definitely doing it wrong. All I'm trying to do is reduce the back height. It looks too tall to me at the moment, so I'm just working around. I like to, when I'm reducing height on something like this. Well, something like this. I don't have a lot of experience doing it with a knife and 3D carving like this, but if I'm doing it with relief carving, then rather than just going down to the height I want and then working from there, I'm a little bit more tentative than that, because I've been caught out with not having enough wood left to round it off. So I kind of like to establish the rough shape, and then if it needs to go down in height as this one does, keep that rough shape as I go down. That way I don't end up suddenly going, oops, I don't have enough wood left to create the shape I'm after. So either the whole thing suddenly gets really tiny, or I throw it away and start again. And I have had to do that occasionally with a relief carving. I've done it once, I think. Can't remember. Oh, old Bix is referring to this. I've had it on all day. It's thank you for the prompt, but it was unintentional advertising. So yeah, we were making jewellery yesterday to help my thumb recover from the carving. And we made this silver metal bracelet. It's every ring you see there is sterling silver, including the clasp. It proved an interesting challenge to start with. I just couldn't get it. I tried twice. The third time I got it started. It's the weave that this is done with is called a half Persian 4-in-1, and I was about to say it's tricky to get started. It's not actually tricky to get started. It's relatively a simple start. It just won't hold its shape until you've got about 10 rings in the pattern, and until you get those 10 rings in the pattern, if you sort of put it down or lose where you are, it's really hard to pick it up again and sort out where all the rings should be. And eventually last night I was using a cocktail stick to get started, but once I did, it then got finished really quickly. Mrs. Argonauts has been wearing hers as well since then. I also have completed a Byzantine weave bracelet for Mrs. Argonaut, and she's been wearing that all day as well. So we both have, I won't say matching bracelets, but at least we each have a silver metal bracelet. I suppose if I'm going to do advertising as well, what I ought to do is actually advertise the shop as well, shouldn't I? I have started my brain's gone. I have started an Etsy shop with the intention, well, certainly of the jewellery and other things like the punch graft and stuff like that, putting that up for sale on there, at least until I can get my own website up and running. So if there's anybody interested in taking a look, what I ought to do is put the URL into the, well, these days I'll get a bot and have a shortcut for doing this, but HTTP I'm now typing. I touch type, and when I can't touch type, it's really weird. It's hard to type one fingered. I believe that's the URL. If anybody wants to take a look, you're quite welcome to, of course. As I say, just the jewellery there at the moment. Some of the other stuff probably will find its way there eventually when I can sort of get things sorted out. Oh bother! Just saying bother there because I forgot the grain of the wood. You always have to remember where the grain of the wood is, because like I did then. I was cutting such that I would have taken a real deep chunk out because I was going the wrong way to the grain, and when you do that you can ruin a piece. I was lucky that I recognised what I was doing, stopped and hadn't gone too far, but tell you what, that front end looks a bit fat as well, so we'll slim that down a bit, I think. Am I making anybody nervous yet? If I am making anybody nervous using the knife like this, don't worry about it. I could say I'm a professional, but I'm not because I don't get paid. But I do know what I'm doing with this, and what I'm doing is safe, precisely because I know what I'm doing. The way I'm holding the knife and the way I'm driving the knife basically means it's not impossible for me to cut myself, but it is quite difficult. Basically, I can't make contact because what happens if I'm pulling this, it stops there, and as you can see, there's a gap. Yep. In fact, that hand there is the one that's most vulnerable, and not holding this properly. If I held this knife slightly lower, then I can make contact. But if I hold it properly, it's difficult. But yes, as Vov VE there mentioned, you do have to be careful with what you're doing. You know, these knives are sharp; they're really sharp. In actual fact, the sharper they are, the better. But you can easily create damage to yourself if you are careless. I hope you recovered from it, Vovy. And he's now okay. And the other thing, talking about safety, the other thing I would be doing if I wasn't wearing glasses, I'd be wearing safety glasses as well. Especially when I'm carving this sort of this way towards myself, because some of those chips do fly up, and I have had them sort of bounce off my face and glasses before now. You don't really want this thing in your eyes. The real Austin. Is there an unreal one? I don't know. Hopefully that view of it makes it a bit more obvious. It's in the idea of it is it's a sleeping pussycat. I'm doing it more or less from my own memory or imagination. There was a real model for this. One of our cats at one point several months ago was laid just at the further other end of the studio in that sort of pose, and I very quickly just sketched the outline onto a piece of wood that I happened to have, and then started carving it from there. I didn't get very far for various reasons, but I'm just coming back to it now. But yeah, so now I'm sort of having to remember what a pussycat looks like when it's laid like that. Yeah, always being careful. That's right, indeed. Not taking chances. I mean, there's things for the people that are watching. There's things like I'm using the blade this way at this moment in time. I'm driving it with my thumb, which means I can only drive it so far. My elbows are actually on the armrests, and I'm not using my arm muscles when I drive this blade at all. I'm only using thumbs or these fingers. I don't use the whole arm either way. There's very little or a lot less control if you use the whole arm muscles. There's a lot of power there, and it's very easy to cause yourself damage with one slip. So you know, it's that's sort of one of the other sort of safety tips for using knives. If you don't use a lot of power, you stand a lot less chance of damaging yourself, though these are razor sharp, which is why I'm wearing these. These are Kevlar gloves, or it's a Kevlar glove. It won't necessarily stop me hurting myself. There's various ways in which the glove won't do that, like if I stab myself. And it won't stop the point penetrating, but it will stop me slicing myself. Birdie lover, hello, good evening. Probably not, Vovi. I probably won't be carving fur. It really depends. It doesn't. Well, it will be deciding decision at that point. And if I am, I'll be getting out a chisel to do it, not this. The other possibility is to do pyrography over it, by which I can also create a fur texture. So that might be one possibility, especially if this is a black and white cat, or the model was. So you know, that's one thing that I can do. I might just leave it raw wood in this form. I mean, when you look at a cat which is sort of shall we say a healthy cat, its fur is quite sleek and smooth down. It doesn't stand up or clump or anything like that. So you know, it is still in keeping. You will obviously see the fine fur, but I haven't decided basically. It would be a heck of a lot of work though to put that much fur texture in. I know there's, you know, you can use a technique of hinting at the texture. You're just putting it in certain places, which reduces the amount of work that needs to be done to create that texture. And that is another possibility. That is going to need to go in further to give me enough room to carve the legs. That's okay. Let's do a little bit of carving on that. No, let's bring that in first. What I just had in my hand there was a detail knife. This is a roughing knife, so it's quite a sturdy blade. The idea being that you can take large chunks out with this blade. The other blade was a detail blade, so it's probably as strong, but it has a finer point, which is great for getting into small spaces or for doing small details. It also has a slightly shorter blade, so certain ways of carving, like carving this, where I want to get in just with the the point of the blade here, and it's difficult to hold this piece in such a way that I can maintain safety because of the long blade. If I use the shorter bladed tool, I've still got that end stop against the handle, which is the safe way of doing it. Of course, what I should do, and I'm just going to scratch an itch like that, I should put the blade down. Because that's when you make a mistake and forget it's in your hand, and suddenly there's an unintended consequence. Just repositioning the wood, trying to make sure I keep a solid hold on it. Ideally, I guess this is probably just about big enough. I should use a carving vise for this, which is a tool which will hold it in basically any position I want. They either have like a ball head. Generally speaking, a carver's vise is a flat plate of wood, so a flat plate which you screw your wood to, and then that flat plate sits on either a ball joint of some kind or the equivalent sort of 3-axis connections, which allow you to move it in any position you want. Generally speaking, that's generally used more for chisel carving, but you can use it for knives. It's a little bit more awkward for knives because knives tend to be sort of handheld devices, but it would be a lot safer for quite a few things. This is one job also, doing this hollowing out, where the detail blade is slightly better again, because what I'm trying to do with this is turn the blade. Well, it reaches a point where the width of the height of the blade is actually more than the radius of the turn, and then what happens is you see this. Well, you might see this, actually can't. There you go, you see like little cuts here. Where that is where the blade has sort of jumped out and it's broken off the wood rather than cut the wood, and that's because this blade is now too wide in that gap, and that's where, if I switch to the smaller blade, because it's got a smaller height, I can stay within the radius. So that's another use for the detail knife, even though I'm still roughing out here. And now I'm using my left thumb here to stabilise the blade. I'm driving it with my right and with my hands, with my fingers, but I'm stabilising it with my left thumb. I'm guessing you must be one in order to think you know what one looks like. I don't, so bye. Yeah, I think he has indeed. Is that I haze it up? Welcome. Nate Herc. Interesting names. Thank you. Carving into a hollow is always a challenge. You end up, if you're not careful, you end up cutting deeper because of things like the breakout that I've got here. In actual fact, what I should do is change to using this blade, and then I can ease that radius a little bit. That blade feels a little bit blunt. I might have to give this a little strop. Using that to get rid of the cut that was there. It's not really a problem at this stage, but I just don't like leaving them in place. Okay, we want to carve that a little bit more, so let me just give this detail blade a little bit of a strop, which effectively will just sharpen up the edge. I'm not actually sharpening it as such, but it does have the effect of it being sharper after I've done it. So this is just a piece of leather on a board. For those people that haven't seen this done before, and this is just a polishing compound. And it's actually quite a mild polishing compound as well. All polishing compounds are a very fine abrasive. So all I need to do with this is line it up, angle the blade correctly, and it's a little bit awkward to do just because this blade actually isn't quite flat. It's slightly curved, which actually makes it a little bit difficult to on a flat strop like this to strop it effectively. What I might just do, and I don't need to do this much because effectively all I'm doing is straightening the blade. If you're not aware, when a blade cuts, it doesn't actually get blunt as such to start with. The very fine edge, the cutting edge, tends to just bend over, and that effectively makes it feel blunt because you're driving not against a point but against a sort of the edge of it. So all the stropping does is just straighten it out, and then it cuts nice and sharp again. But that blade is slightly curved, so essentially I just need to run it over this. This is a slightly curved piece of leather. And sometimes what's not, I don't know if it'll do it on here. Let's see if I can angle this correctly. Yeah, you can just, if you can see quite well. I can't quite do this because the camera's, I'm trying to do it with the camera. There we go. You can see the honed edge, if you like, of the blade if you get the light just in the right position. And I'm trying to do this sort of backwards because the camera is not mirrored. I can't actually do it now, but you can usually run the light up and down the honed edge, and it has no effect. You know, you can't actually see if it's sharp, but it's just fun to do. So what I want you to do here is carry it just a slightly more aggressive curve coming off the not that aggressive, just coming off this is kind of the sort of knee area of the back feet, sort of hips and knee area. So I just wanted to sort of create more of an indent just around there. And I don't want that click now noise that you heard there. Effectively what's happening there is I'm almost dragging the blade at I am dragging the blade at too sharp an angle, and it's not cutting, it's jumping, and that click is it jumping. So it means I'm basically trying to use the blade at the wrong angle. And what it will do is it will force the edge of the blade to tip over. It will actually blunt it. In some cases, if it's strong enough, you can actually break that very fine edge off. So it sort of it's even more blunt. Okay, that should give me a little bit more space to carve the knee and the hip. Okay, so just curving it in a little bit. I mean the widest part of the back of the cat is where the hips obviously are. The knees sort of come in a little bit, so I'm just intimating at that shape. I'm not actually going to model it that accurately. But I'm just sort of looking at it and going, that looks about okay. I do like that shape now that I've got in there. So we'll actually try and do the same thing on the other side. Now this will be a little bit more interesting because I'm carving it the other way. Actually, can I do it? Have I got enough space to do it this way? Just about. Can't quite hold this as I'd like to. The gloves, whilst they're Kevlar and are all very good for doing this sort of thing, they are a little bit slippy. Lost in House, hi, how are you doing? You haven't, I was about to say you haven't been around for a while, but there again, I have not been in your stream for a while either. How are you doing? For those of you that are watching, Lost in House, famous streamer, streams house music, believe it or not, on almost a daily basis, it seems like now. So give Lost in House's channel a check out if you're at all interested in house music. She's very good at it. Well, you're more famous than I am, that's for sure. I'm not doing too bad, thank you, Lost. Dear. You're slumming it before your stream, are you? Lord of my. Thank you very much. You don't famous. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it shows how much I know about house music, if it then, doesn't it? I'm sure you're famous. There isn't glitter and gold every time you look in a mirror. There's two responses to that one, Lost. Either that implies you look in a mirror very often, or if you don't, then how would you know? Oh dear, but seriously guys, she's very good. Check out the stream. Decide for yourself whether you think she's famous or should be. Oh, is he? Sorry, I didn't see you there. Stream colours the same as Lost was. Welcome back. For anybody that's new or has only just popped into the stream, in case you're wondering what I'm doing one of those. A sleeping pussycat. Oh, that's the intention. As I'm doing this totally from memory without reference or other visual aids, quite how it turns out it's going to be interesting, but we shall see. So at the moment I'm kind of just creating rough shapes. I try and get something that sort of suits what's in my imagination. And I do know in my imagination this is a bit too tall. It needs to come down in height. I mean, from this sort of angle, it looks rather like a polar bear sort of shape. Fox's Glacier Mints, the polar bear. From there, that's kind of what it reminds me of. A kitten. It needs to be a lot smaller then, but it's loosely based on Junior, who several months ago was at the other side of the studio when I just happened to have a block of wood in my hand, laid like that. So I just quickly sketched him on the block of wood and did a little bit of roughing out then, and then put it to one side, and hadn't done any since. So I'm just carrying on from there. Exilian, good evening. Welcome back. Thank you for dropping in this evening. That's the only trouble. These Kevlar gloves, these Kevlar gloves, are really good. But with wood, you keep catching the fibres. Let's shave the back down a little bit. So, how's life with you then, Lost? As I say, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to. Well, I have had a chance, but I haven't been able to drop into your stream for a while. I noticed you've been streaming a lot whilst I've been at work, but unfortunately, I can't listen to music while I'm at work. I find it too distracting. So I end up watching other streams because voice helps me concentrate rather than distracting me. Yeah, I noticed. I was there. I thought I was kind of in my own mind thinking. I'm sure you were on one evening or other. Been out to Ibiza. What's this? Could be. Well, obviously, could be a holiday. Could be a research. Could have been out to do some shows, or you could have been out to learn some stuff. I guess. Normal. No, normal is when nothing is the same 2 days in a row. Daytime streaming. But yeah, actually, I was thinking that's when I was, because I was thinking just then. I know when I went to bed this morning, I think it was about 2 o'clock. I have got the feeling that I saw you were streaming then. Certainly late, I think. It's you young'uns, you see. I don't know how you do it. 2 o'clock and that's it. I've got to go to bed. Stopping by again, indeed you are. Welcome, good evening. Been there to play answer. Play as in tunes or play as in. I was about to say have fun, but that is what you do when you play tunes, but you know what I mean. Only one day of sunshine. Okay. Having a Mr. Peanut. No, carving a Mr. Junior pussycat, sleeping variety. Sorry, I'm looking up at the chat. I ought to get one down here somewhere, somehow. Maybe I'll experiment with that one day. Ah, yeah, tunes. Ah, well, there you are. You see, you're playing in Ibiza. That means you've got to be famous, hasn't it? It's where all the famous people play, isn't it? Ibiza. Yeah, Sleeping Pussycat stopping by again. I guess stream delay hasn't quite caught up. Yeah, it's intended to be a Sleeping Pussycat. Whether it will be or not, I don't know. This is, when I finish this, this will be the first full 3D carved object I've done, and it will be the first one I've done with knives, complete end to end. I normally do relief carving, so this is kind of new. So I'm not quite sure what I'm doing in terms of creating the shape. I know what I'm doing in terms of using the knife for safety, but apart from that, I'm kind of making it up as I go along. Amsterdam. You keep trying to persuade me you're not famous, and then you go, okay, played in Ibiza, the home of music, like that. Now you're going out to Amsterdam. This is a jet-setting lifestyle, is this? And you're playing in Amsterdam, and you're trying to convince me. Not working very well, I'm afraid, isn't the convincing bit? There you are, guys. You know, whether or not Lost is famous or not, she's now playing in Ibiza. She's going out to play in Amsterdam. Definitely have a look at the channel. You never know, even if she is correct in that she's not famous now. She keeps on like this. You can see you were in at the beginning. You saw her before she was famous. Back end shape there now is starting to look more what I expect it to look like. I think it's probably still a bit tall, but we'll come back to it. Let's get rid of these. I'll bring these shoulder blades down a little bit here. Which means I'll want a bit of more of a neck down there. That's no problem stopping by again. You'll find I do that all the time. It's one of the things I do whilst I'm streaming, and I enjoy doing. I won't necessarily say it's the reason why I stream, but explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it is partly a reaction to what I found when I wanted to look out for videos on, well, YouTube at the time, because I didn't know Twitch Creative existed, on things like carving or any of the other crafts that I do, the pyrography for example. And I had it's come across lots of videos where people would go like this is how you carve a cat. You do this shape and you use this knife, and it's kind of, right, well, fair enough, but the cat you've done is sitting. What happens if I want to do one laying down? It's kind of like, your video didn't tell me what I needed to do to carve a cat sitting up. It told me this is how you do it, so I can't apply that knowledge to a cat laid down. And that kind of annoyed me a little bit, with people sort of, this is how you do it. It's kind of like, well, I don't find that comfortable. Is there another way? And it's, they kind of put it across as this is the only way it can be done. So what I try and do when I'm doing these streams is say why I'm doing something. So it's, I do my best, generally speaking, not to say this is the way to do it, but this is the way I do it. And I'll try and explain why I'm doing it that way. So why I'm using this knife as opposed to this knife, why I'm holding it in a certain way, or why I'm looking at it and going, this is what I'm taking the top off because I think that looks too tall. And I'm carving this in because I want to round that off and I need the space to do it, so this creates space. That sort of explanation is something I do quite a bit. No problem, lost in house. I look all the time wherever I am, so I can't object to somebody else doing it. But yeah, Trenta, awesome to see me streaming again. Well, welcome back, by the way. I've not stopped, so I guess it's kind of got dropping in again. I stream 7 nights a week. Trenta, thank you for the follow. Yeah, I stream 7 nights a week. I think I have missed, since I started streaming, I have missed, apart from 2-week holiday, 1 other night of streaming. I think. Might have been 2, but not very many. Right, I still need to reduce the shape is sort of approximately right in that the back end is lower than the shoulders. The shoulders too tend to be the highest point, and that's when the cat's got his paws out front like that. They drop a little bit lower when he tucks them under, but again it still tends to be the highest point of a cat is the shoulders, and the back end, just because of the way it's rotated, because his knees, the joints back here, and his hips are back here, and that's his knees basically. So the way it rotates tend to make the back end a lot lower, but it still looks rather tall to me. Sorry, it still looks rather tall here. So I need to bring it down still further. Indeed, and that's what it is. It's about having fun. And I'm having fun. And I need to, well, one thing I need to bear in mind is, generally speaking, well, it depends on how much fat the cat's got, but the shoulder blades tend to stick up, and so there tends to be a small dimple in the middle. I may put that in, I may not. It's something that, because I quite often have a cat sat on me, I kind of notice, but generally speaking it's not really important. I think you think carving is really funny. I want to know if my knife is any good. I have no idea, I'm afraid, Trenta. I couldn't tell you. I've not got any particular experience of it. That knife, in fact, I've got no experience of that knife. It's not one I've ever heard of. My experience of knives is literally these two that I've got, which are flex cut knives, because I got these because I've got flex cut chisels, which appeared to be, shall we say, one of the better ones when I got them. You know, this looking around at videos and websites and things like that to try and sort of determine what would be good for a beginner, which I was at the time. FlexCut had a good name and were available in the UK, so I kind of went with the same ones for the knives, and I've not been disappointed with them. I've got two different knives here. I don't know of that manufacturer, I'm afraid, so I couldn't really say. I think if a knife is sharp and can hold a sharp edge for a while, that's good. If it's got a comfortable handle, because you're going to be holding and gripping it reasonably tightly, so this, for example, has got a shaped handle which makes it quite comfortable to hold, is good. The thing about this, holding this one as well, if I can do it on that camera, is when I hold it such that my thumb makes contact there, and that rounding off makes it quite comfortable when I'm carving quite fast, because I'm making contact with that. If it had a sharp edge, it'd be uncomfortable. So that's sort of shape, and it feels solid. I'm not, you know, the blade isn't rocking, and it bends a little bit. It gives, but it doesn't bend a lot, which is also quite good. It's quite a thick blade. This is a rough knife, so it's the idea is that you're going to take large chunks of wood off with it. So it's got quite a wide blade to provide it with strength, whereas this one is a detail blade, so it's intended, you know, for lighter duty, shall we say. So the blade itself isn't as wide, and it comes to more of a point to get into smaller spaces than this. So I have two for that sort of reason. I didn't feel like either blade would be sufficient to do the whole job, but I'm afraid I don't know other than that. Trolley 99, it's kind of a personal question for Twitch, but as I've mentioned her before, yes I do. Yeah, if it's as I say, I don't know if the knife, if it's what would be typically called a pen knife, where you open the blade, I was going to say, if it doesn't lock in place, don't use it. If the blade locks in place, then and you have to sort of release it by pressing a button or something like that, it's safer. Don't use pen knives for carving, because it only needs to bend. If you're holding it like that and for some reason the blade closes, it's going to slice your fingers, and potentially it might do that with quite some force. So don't use pen knives for carving. I'm actually not sure whether in some countries lock knives, which is what that would be, is also illegal to be carried in certain countries. I'm not sure about possession. Certainly in the UK, to carry a lock knife, if I remember correctly, you have to have a reason for carrying it, which, for example, if I was going to a carving exhibition carrying a lock, I don't have any, but that would be a reason for carrying it. It would be illegal for me to carry it otherwise. Or if it's to be carried in an inaccessible position. Oops, sorry. So if I was in the car, for example, the knife would have to be in the boot, or the back, the trunk, if you're American. So fixed knives like that, okay. Okay, Trenta, have a good evening, have a good sleep. Don't carve when you're tired. That's a tip for you. That's when you make mistakes. Right, back to carving some shape into this, or some more shape into this. And I'm doing it again. I keep doing that. I'm carving the wrong position on the grain. The grain disappears slightly that way, downwards. And if I carve from this angle, I tend to pull the wood, slice too much wood off basically. I have to carve from the opposite direction at this particular position on the wood. Needs to come in more, give me space to I describe it as space to carve, which kind of implies I need to, room to get like a knife in. What I'm actually meaning by space to carve is I've got sufficient depth that I can round this over in a natural sort of way, rather than if I tried to do it now, this is too shallow. It wouldn't curve in a particular natural looking way, and so that's what I mean by space to carve. It allows me to get the shape that I want as it comes off the body. A fairly abrupt curve upwards, and then over the top, because the arm bone is down here. Indy Hagen, thank you very much for the follow. And then it sort of disappears down towards his neck, so it pulls the sort of the skin a little bit tight down there. Stopping by again, thank you very much for the follow. Okay, well, whatever you do, have fun and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or whatever time zone it is you're in. And thank you for following. See you again when you drop in. Actually, I'll switch to using the detail knife here, because with a finer tip, I've got a tighter bend radius that I can get around, which will allow me to have that more aggressive rounding that I mentioned. The only problem I've got is I'm trying to carve in trying to carve a curve in here, where ideally I need the knife in this direction. So actually I could do with a knife which has got the sharp edge on this side, the curved side, so that I'd be able to carve that way. What I might end up doing is getting a chisel out, because although the chisel also doesn't, the chisels I've got don't happen to have the right curve either. The shape of them does allow me to sort of go around the curve a little bit. I'm not being purist about using knives to do this. They're just the easiest thing to do for a lot of it. If I need to use a chisel, I'll use a chisel, or if it's the right tool to use for the job. If we get to it, I may even need to get out the rotary carving tool, but don't really want to do that because it creates a lot of dust. It's it's not a lot of noise, but it creates a lot of dust, and I don't like breathing a lot of dust, which I would be here. We'll leave that as it is for the moment. Okay, 1 hour ahead. Well, that's still quite late. No problem. look forward to you dropping in again sometime. I think I'm now imagining a cat. I'm also putting my arms in the same sort of position of a cat, so they're going to be slightly, yeah, kind of does that. I'm sort of, you might see me do that from time to time. He's sort of imagining how the cat lays and the way the bones go. And what it basically means is the front paw here is actually going to be slightly further in. It's not right at the end here, and that's a silly thing to do, so I won't. The silly thing to do was to carve in the way I was just about to try and do it. I would have put my thumb in danger. So I'm being a little bit careful here, because what I don't want to do is yank the blade up and chop his nose off. I'm not quite sure where that nose wants to be just yet, so if I can avoid chopping it off, I can always chop it off later. Let's go back to this blade, because this blade I've got the end stop. I'm not whilst I mentioned I've got the end stop, well, I am not using a lot of force here. I don't want to use a lot of force. That's actually quite an awkward position to carve in. Whilst it's really difficult, once I stretch out like that, I'm getting a lot closer to making contact. So it's an uncomfortable position, shall we say, to carve in. I try to avoid using the point in that sort of direction if I can, but I can't always avoid it. So things like that, occasionally the knife will just pop out of the wood, probably due to the wood grain, and snap towards you. So, you know, always having it in a safe position, even if you don't think you're likely to make contact with yourself, like I'm carving back here, it only needs to pop out and snap, and you don't have a good day anymore. Lord Calamari 1, hello, welcome. Do you happen to like the stuff? Domish, what am I making? As this, no, the mic's not too bad. If I pump the mic up much more, it actually clips and you'll get popping. So not much sure I can do about the mic, I'm afraid. I can, one thing I can try. Will that work? Okay, let's have a go. I've got to be a little bit careful. Let's audio. Let's push that to there, and we'll see how that goes. If I get too close to the mic, though, it starts popping. I start overdriving it, so as long as I sit back, I can talk up a little bit. But if I get too excited, then the mic will start giving you clicks and bangs. So what am I making is a sleeping pussycat. hopefully that's what I end up making. Yeah, so I'm just carving a little bit of into the pores here, just to give myself a little bit more of a rough shape. So I'm being gentle because I'm carving towards wood that I want to keep at the moment, which is the nose. And I don't want this, I don't want it to suddenly slice off a large area of the nose wood. Okay, I'll leave that for them. Let's round the paws off. Just a touch. Kind of like the fur on the cat though will tend to make it look sort of flat against the floor anyway. 80 Fall Guy, good evening and welcome. You've been lurking, okay. So what have you been playing tonight then? Let's just round that top off a little bit. And we'll round the bottom off a bit. Just bring the front in a little. Nasarai. Oh, I'm going to have a problem pronouncing that one. Nasarayo X. Nasarayo. No. I give up. Sorry, I can't pronounce that one. Nasario GX. Nasario GX, I guess. Fluffy Twiglet, good evening. You're back home, I guess. And new paintbrushes. You've been visiting an art shop on your way back. I was about to say, don't you have enough brushes? And I thought, nah, you're an artist. You never have enough brushes. Just like me, I never have enough chisels or knives or airbrushes. Now what have you bought then, Fluffy Twiglet? A bit of Terrier and World of Tanks. Oh, okay. Settlers Online. Settlers is one I don't know. I've heard of the others. And I've watched some World of Tanks and things. Ah, you ordered them a while ago. Either you order things on really long lead times or you're telling fibs. Is there someone around that you don't want to know how much you're spending? Iron Saints, you've written a lot of people that, quite possibly because I suspect a lot of people will listen as much as they watch. I don't mind. Given that when I watch a lot of streams, I do it whilst I'm doing something else, and it's playing, and I'm looking at it, but mainly listening. So, yeah, I don't mind people doing that. Okay, I'm taking quite a bit of wood off the top here, and yet I still can't quite bring the height down to something I'm think is about right. kind of look at it and go, that looks okay, and then I'll turn it over and look at this. So when I look at that side, it kind of, oh, that's not bad. Then I look at that side and think, God, that looks tall. And I'm partly fooling myself because of the tail. So I'm looking at that distance from there to there, ignoring the tail, almost though it's the cat sat on something. And of course, when I look at it from that side, you don't have that. You know, if the tail was in the same sort of position about here, it doesn't look so bad. Actually, Orbix, I've watched quite a lot of people do chainsaw stuff, and it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure I'd want to get a chainsaw out, although a small electric carving chainsaw wouldn't be too bad, especially because I'm hoping I will have some. No, I'm not hoping. I may end up with some tree trunks that I could do that sort of thing with, which is actually an interesting idea. I'd end up with sawdust all over the place. But to be honest, things like there's things like an Arbortic grinding. This is kind of a grinding wheel, but a grinding wheel for wood interests me more than actually doing it using using a chainsaw. In actual fact, it would probably save me a lot of potential trouble as well, because the area I'm thinking of doing it in, I was thinking that I might do it in, the trees are protected, so I'd be having people coming round thinking I'm chopping trees down. Let's have a look at this. Oh yeah. Well, apart from the subject matter, the carving looks good. I kind of looks more like they're trying to hang him than anything, but yeah, that's an interesting image. I'm not sure I'm into something that tall, to be honest. Maybe sort of smaller sort of stuff. Red Cake 11, what I'm carving. I think maybe I'll put that onto the side of the window. Okay, that side of the window. I've forgotten this monitor's reversed. I might put that on for the next stream. It's a sleeping pussycat. Oh, is this the stuff that sort of just holds the shape well until you use them for the first time type of thing? Yeah, fluffy twiglet. Because I was suddenly thinking then, glue on the bristles, that means they're badly made. It shouldn't be, but I guess, you know, it's that. You just got to work them, don't you, if I remember rightly, just to break that all off and separate all the hairs. I've never had a decent paintbrush of that sort of type of paintbrush, so I wouldn't know. Actually, having said which, somewhere around, and I do say somewhere, may even be here in the studio, I do have a Bob Ross kit, so that's supposed to have some reasonably decent brushes in it. So maybe one of these days on the stream we'll have to try some happy clouds and snow-capped mountains. Top, yeah. Yeah, because you're supposed to do it like you paint, aren't you? Sort of not sort of jab them down, but sort of bend them type of thing. Okay, so if it's high on that side, let's make sure we reduce this bit down then. So let's go a little bit more aggressive, shall we? That's a bit more aggressive. That wasn't quite as aggressive as I intended, but it'll do. So I'm still going to have to do this in stages just because I can't do all the rest like that in one go, but mind you, of course, the snow-capped mountains are done with a palette knife, not brushes. So, for those of you that don't know the reference, Bob Ross unfortunately is no longer with us, but he was quite a famous artist, teaching people fairly simple techniques to get quite spectacular pictures. So, you know, beginners could make decent, what they beginners themselves would consider decent pictures, with really simple techniques. Indeed, definitely a talent. Okay, now that's gone flat because I took a bit more off than I intended, so we need to round it. Again, it doesn't have to be dead smooth. I mean, it's a cat. It doesn't sit perfectly symmetrical. The fur has sort of patterns in it. It just needs to move. It flexes his leg a little bit, and the two sides will look different. So. Getting there. Still looks really tall on this side. So let's take the head down a little bit, which I think I need it to do anyway. We may end up turning this block of wood into wood chippings and have nothing left at the end of it, but we'll have had fun doing it, and I've learned quite a bit about shaping a cat. So if that happens, at least the next time I'll do a better job. So I'm not worried if this turns out to be bad and doesn't actually sort of resemble what it's supposed to resemble. This is, as I say, it's I've only ever sort of done two handheld 3D carving, or two 3D carving, full 3D carving. Although I suppose this technically isn't full 3D because I'm not going to carve the underneath. So I a lot to learn. It's quite a bit different from relief carving, which is what I normally do, because with relief carving, something like, and we probably only do that profile of the cat there. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be this thick. It would perhaps only be something like about ½ an inch at most, and we'd be using sort of things like forced perspective type techniques to sort of fool you into seeing things that aren't there. So doing it in the full round where you can actually look around would be it is something that's new to me. And so things like, if I was carving this relief, I might go, that looks okay for the height of the cat. Okay, the tail fools you a little bit, but it looks okay. It's only because I'm doing this in full in the round I'll look on that side and go, nah, it's not. So I'm learning stuff. Yeah. I do know we won't be going on too long after my normal end time tonight if we go on past it at all, because I can feel the knife on my thumb here, sort of the internal muscles, whatever, fat, flesh is sort of feeling uncomfortable, shall we say, against the knife blade. Move my finger out of the way, it was getting a bit close, but that's one reason why I wear the Kevlar glove. You can end up sometimes concentrating on the back end of the knife here and not watching what the front end's doing. We'll see, Orbix. I'll see how I am tomorrow, basically, or possibly even tomorrow night. I can sort of feel, you might realise, but just as you're moving it around, you can feel sort of the internal bit of your thumb moving around, if that doesn't sound too weird, which it probably does, but so I'm hoping it won't be another rest from this. We'll see. Might need to sort of take a rest maybe Monday night or Tuesday night, something like that. And if I do, we'll just do a different craft, probably back to some of the jewellery, I suspect, but as I say, that's an easy thing to just inject for one stream. So we'll still be streaming even if I'm not able to drive the knife. just drawing the ears on a little bit. I've started to rub the pencil mark off. I'm just trying to put some of the ear shape in a little bit, because that will help me understand the shape of the head around here. Because I'm fairly sure the head's too big at the moment. Although it's kind of odd, because the cat, when the cat's sort of like that, they sort of put the head down, and the face is kind of relatively flat, but the eyes and the bridge of the nose, etc., sort of stick into that flat space. So I've kind of got to get this reasonably sort of flat, but then do the indent. So it's a tricky thing to see in my own see the image I'm trying to portray in my own mind. If I can see the image in my mind, it's a bit easier to map it onto the wood, but I'm kind of struggling a little bit at the moment. And then if that's, that is the case, so one of the things I do is just keep, if you like, chipping away at the problem, doing a little bit, and seeing if it looks like what I'm after, and if it's not, stop doing it. But I'm still leaving myself sort of like on the ears here. I'm leaving space. The pencil mark is probably where I want to get to, but I'm leaving space around them so that I can make mistakes. And I've still got wood left to correct that mistake and create the shape before I get down to the final position. Mool Mailer, welcome. Thank you for the follow, that's kind of you. So starting to now just to put that point of the ear in, so we're coming back away from it. As I say, with the heads forward, it's going to tend to be sort of straight back. I'm going to end up having to study a pussycat again, I think, which is probably good for the pussycat, because if you what I will do is basically play around with her ears, see where they join the head, and which the cats quite enjoy, you messing around with their ears, around their ears, not with their ears but around their ears, so seeing how they join onto where they join onto the head and things like that. Kind of got sort of semi-willing victims to let me find out. Any Fall Guy. Okay, have a good evening. Yep, I should be around. I won't be watching during the day tomorrow. I'm not at work, but I am going to be busy all day. So if you are streaming tomorrow, and Eddie Fall Guy is another streamer during the day, if he streams during the day, we'll be doing almost certainly chainmail. Although I think you were going to do some animation stuff, weren't you, Eddie Fall Guy? And sometimes on the evening you'll be playing games, like he has been today, but streaming them instead. An awkward angle to that. I've got a plane of the wood, a grain of the wood, which just happens to be at that angle, and it keeps breaking off basically, which means I can't get a smooth carve. I keep getting a rough rough bit of wood, because when you break wood off, you strip it off, you basically part the fibres, and it actually creates quite a rough surface. At this stage again, we still got plenty to go, so I'm not fantastically worried. And if worst comes to the worst, I'll just apply a little bit of sandpaper, but I'm actually trying to avoid using sandpaper on here if I can. I like the texture of just carved wood, and right now I take my time carving it, and use a sharp knife. It comes out extremely smooth, and it comes out shiny, whereas if I use sandpaper on it, it'll come out white, and not as sort of smooth, not as well, not as shiny anyway. It will go dark and slightly shiny over time, because that's what the wood does, it sort of oxidizes, but I do like it if I can just leave it carved without having to apply sandpaper or anything like that. Okay. Earrings indeed. I'll have to try some of them at some point. I haven't tried any earrings yet. I shall have to have a play. You're off as well, Fluffy Twiglet? Okay, now I understand that. If you only just got back, then you need some rest. Okay. Well, if it's going well, is the painting, I would appreciate a progress picture, but obviously if you don't want to, that's up to you. I don't mind. Yeah, we'll be stopping in a few minutes anyway. Again, I've just cracked that bit of wood off, which is not what I intended to do. I wanted it to carve off. So we'll come at it from this side. Quite often if you get a problem where like wood is cracking off, as it was doing to me that way, essentially what it's telling you is you're carving it from the wrong side. So carve it from the other side, which is what I've just effectively done there. And that usually cures the problem you've got with it cracking off. Wood is quite good at telling you when you're doing something inappropriate, shall we say. Sometimes there's good reasons for doing things, like carving the wrong way on grain, and you can't avoid it. So you know it's not necessarily wrong to carve the wrong way on grain, but you know, you've just got to be aware of it and deal with whatever issues may arrive, like the wood cracking off. But generally speaking, if it's doing something undesirable when you're carving, it means you're doing something wrong. I was just thinking, I'll have to have a look at one of the cats when it's sleeping today, tonight or tomorrow, to just have a look at the shape around here. But I can guarantee, now that I want to do that, there won't be one cat that either sleeps in that particular position, which they do quite often. They just won't do it, or I won't find one asleep anywhere when I'm around. Sort of, the cat's, I don't know if cats are telepathic, but it's kind of like, that's what he wants. Well, we're not going to do that. They'll do something like curl around and tuck their nose under the paws, which is one thing they often do to help themselves go to sleep. They'll do that rather than sleep in this particular position, just to just to be more challenging pets. After all, I'm sure cats, basically, they don't like to make it easy on the servants. Just shaping around the ear, trying to understand what, this front bit here around the head, just where the shapes change, and the head curves, and then hopefully I can sort of follow that and the head line through to sort of shape this bit of it and into the shoulder area here, around it, and then look at dropping it down a bit more, because I think this is still much too high, I think. Plus it's it kind of looks like it's got a really massive head at the moment, so I think there's something about this shape here that isn't quite right just around this area. But I think we'll call it a night for tonight. Done a fair bit of rough shaping. Okay, done it slowly. I'm not that confident a carver to take great big chunks out, but we get there and we have fun doing it, which is the main thing. And I'm learning lots about how I'm doing this as I go along, so that is also an interesting thing for me. And of course, you guys get to see the mistakes or the corrections or why I'm doing things. So if carving becomes of interest to you, at least you've got a jump start, I hope. I'm going to give up for tonight. I have now got a little bit of time to pick up all the bits and pieces that are all over my desk, because they get everywhere, all over me because they were flicking backwards, and probably all over the floor as well. These stuff get everywhere, and it's probably time to give my thumb a little bit of a rest. You may or may not see it, but it's somewhat sort of bright red. Mind you, so's the other one because I've been holding it, but bright red, and you sort of see that almost purple line across. I can't quite get it right there, but there's sort of one across there which is sort of the bruise, if you like, from the blade, from the back of the blade. So that's the thing I'm trying to avoid getting any worse, because if it does, it's really like a really strong bruise, and it will hurt enough not to make carving uncomfortable. So trying to avoid that. We'll see how it is tomorrow night. If it's okay, I shall carve. If it's not, I'll do something else, probably a little bit of jewellery, but we shall see how it goes. So thank you all for watching. I didn't do that on stream, but I did show that on stream, by the way, for those of you that are around. Just before I go, I'm showing off. Whilst I was doing some tidying up today, and whilst I did, I came across this, which is something I carved a good few years ago using basically a craft knife and maybe a saw. It was made from a single solid piece of wood. It's not been joined, it's not been glued or anything. It is a single piece of 6-link chain made from a single piece of pine. So I'm just showing it off. I showed it off on the stream. I I'm still quite pleased with that, to be honest. It's interesting to do solid shapes like that. Things like this out of solid bits of wood. Things like I must look it up, see if I can find it. I've got a ball inside a cage made out of a solid piece of wood as well somewhere. But anyway, what I was going to say is Orbix, thank you, good night. Ray America, also good night. If there's anybody that's watching that isn't following, then of course I would encourage you to push that follow button so that Twitch notifies you when I go live. On the other hand, if you don't trust it, and some people don't, then you can also follow me on Twitter. It's @ZeroGunArt. Details are on the end plate, which will be up shortly, but they are also below the stream window. And of course Twitter will also let you know when I go live, because a tweet goes out when I do go live. On the other hand, if you'd just like to try and catch me tomorrow, which is my next stream, I stream from approximately 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT, or about 2 hours 10 minutes ago, but tomorrow. Thank you all, have a good evening, and now you get to see the an animation outro for the first time. Here's its premiere before you get the end plate. So let's hope I push the right button. Thank you all and have a good evening.